Otto, what I said is that we're using AI this morning to record the meeting. And once the meeting is completed, the minutes of this meeting will be printed before you leave the room. Thank you, Otto. And lastly, we're keeping an eye on breakthroughs in biomedicine and how they impact Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and other diseases of aging that could alter what we do or how we do it, in the future. So that's kind of a look forward, and we have a little bit of time. I'll take one question if there's a question at this point. If not, thank you. We're gonna keep moving on. So Annalise, want to come on?
Yeah, thank you, Jay. All right. Hello, I've been given 15 minutes. The pointer. We have a pointer? Gina, you're amazing. Did it work? Look at that. Okay. Myself here comfortable? All right. Well, many of you have seen this slide before. And as I was listening to Jay, I was thinking, wow, his list of the things that we've done and are doing and are looking forward to do are directly aligned with the must-dos for our financial sustainability. So an organization like ours must continue to exist in the long term. So we have to consider our service levels by staffing well and continuing to have performance and service-driven culture. We have to continually stay current in order to attract our new residents. We need to adapt quickly in this fast-changing world in so many different areas. And ultimately, we must fulfill our mission by continuing to be here. And the reason this slide is always in the beginning of my presentation is that the numbers they have no meaning aside for what we're accomplishing as an organization together. And so as we now go into the numbers, they all are telling a story about how well we are doing the must-dos for financial sustainability. And we can go to our next slide. So 2024 was a good year. We delivered improved profitability and cash flow generation. Our operating revenue was below budget, growing only 2%. And in the next slide, I'll go through why that was. We had continued strong market demand and higher year-over-year move-ins and transitions, which led to a record annual entrance fee receipts. The entrance fees are the amount that new residents pay to enter into the manor, and they're considered deferred revenue. So we receive them as cash, and then we recognize the revenue over the lifespan of our residents. Operating expenses came in under budget. I'm very excited about that. And we held our operating expenses down, and they grew year over year only 2%. Our net operating margin improved to 15.7%. We had targeted achieving a negative 12% net operating margin. So we didn't quite make it because of our operating revenue miss, but it is an improvement, an important improvement. And we continue to have cash flow benefits from investment income and from the remaining project funds from the bond. All right, next slide. So here's where we are. And for those of you who are new, this is a benchmarking slide on one of our most important performance metrics, and most important performance metric in the industry. The green line is the median for the lowest grade the lowest investment grade CCRCs, which is just under 5% positive net operating margin. So that is, think of net operating margin as your measure of the business's ability to meet its expenses. Our revenue, our cash revenue covering your cash expenses. So the red line is single site medians for CARF, and then the blue line is CVM and where we're expecting to go. So the dotted line is our 2025 budget and our 2026 goal, which is to achieve positive net operating margin in 2026. Next slide, please. All right, so occupancy. So occupancy was really the biggest challenge to our net operating margin, or our plan to achieve the negative 12% net operating margin. We budgeted for a 92% average occupancy in independent living, but it proved to be quite sticky. So 2 years in a row, our occupancy has been just over 89%. At year end, we welcomed several new residents, and so we achieved a 91% occupancy for December. And so we're starting the new year off well. We had a lot of movement, as I mentioned earlier. Our year-over-year resident move-ins or movements was 15% more, and we had quite a number of transitions to higher level of care. All right, next slide. So this is a busy slide, but our results. So the care fee revenue were hit by the lower occupancy than planned. We had a year-over-year increase of care fee, if I can make this work, of revenue. We grew 8%, but our variance to budget was we missed budget by $563,000. That was primarily that led to revenue growth of only 2%, and operating expenses. We delivered the budget, and our operating gain loss. Our total operating gain, this includes the foundation distributions to cover care, Grace and Favor, was $2.4 million. Overall, we had a $1.7 million increase in net assets, and that was primarily due to other income. So we had higher than expected entrance fees earned from the deferred revenue. This is amortization. And then we had, I don't plan for gain or loss on investments because we've had market volatility over the last several years, but we had a nice increase in our investments, and we had solid interest in dividends. Next slide. So our spending, this hasn't changed too much. We have the largest increase was insurance, and we spent a lot of time talking about that last year. And I think we can expect to be talking about insurance a lot again this year. And as we consider the impact of the fires in Los Angeles and our ability the potential issues around getting insurance going forward. So not much change here. I think we can go on to the next slide. So I do like to do a spending review at the end of the year. Last year, over the last 2 years, we've had a really strong focus on our staffing and appropriate staffing and reducing our overtime. And so we've had another great year of reducing our overtime spending. In 2023, we reduced our overtime spending by 30%. And this year we reduced it by another 15%. So over a 2-year period, we saved the manor $321,000. Our vehicle operation cost was down $21,000. Welcome electric vehicles. We have 2 new ones for this year coming, and we can continue to see improvements in our transportation costs without impacting our utilities. So increased costs, our total payroll and benefits were only up by $93,000, 1%, which I see, even though it's an increased cost, that's excellent because our cost of living adjustment was 3%. And our food cost was only up by 2%, utilities only up by 41%. And then here's the big animal, the gorilla in the room is insurance was up by quite a lot at 18%. And that is my presentation. I think I did it in under 15 minutes. Yay.
Thanks, Annalise. So I'd like to call up Chris Reagan, our Chief Operating Officer. Chris is going to talk a little bit about the results, the actual results of the resident satisfaction surveys. Chris?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to see some smiling faces in the room. Thank you. Now, if I were Mercedes standing here, and you all have been many of you have been in Mercedes classes, after about 45 minutes of sitting or half an hour of sitting, what would she ask you to do? Stand up. Okay, so everybody, let's take a little moment. Stand up, raise your arms, breathe deeply. Very good. Oh my gosh, everyone. See, doesn't that feel better? Yes. Good job, everyone. Yay. Good job. Good job, everyone. Thank you. The other thing, I love having an opportunity to share with a group. And one thing, we're getting into employee satisfaction, resident satisfaction, and family satisfaction. Well, one of the things we love to do is to share on this campus great things happening. And I want to take a moment to remind you that we are participating this campus. We have 50 spots together for staff and residents to participate in the Big Sur Marathon. So I want to give a shout out that there is a sign up to sign up for the Big Sur Marathon. That doesn't mean running the marathon. You can sign up for a 5K, or we have 4 spots for a 12K. So if you're interested, you have time to get in shape. So want to put that out there. So Gina, again, thank you for the pointer. I may use it. Thank you. So resident satisfaction. We do these quarterly satisfactions. Jay, thank you. You stole some of my thunder, but the NPS score, but we value your input. As Jay and both Annalise have said, we are bent towards excellence. That is why we're here. Excellent service, incredible staff, incredible residents. We are here to serve, and that is our heart and what we love to do. So resident satisfaction, we gathered data from 2023 and 2024. We're just, as you know, getting started on 25. So it's just, I think Gina just sent out the first batch of surveys, right, Gina? So you can see the numbers. Gray is 23, the orange is 24. We are hitting the mark in many places. So thank you. I really believe that Jay spending time with you all on those Tuesday mornings has been a benefit. You have access to our president. I mean, we all have open door policy, but you have access to our president and CEO. He gets that timely information to us, to correct and things. So, I think that's reflective in the numbers that you're seeing. So common areas, staff friendly and courteous, that's huge for us. We hit the mark. Responsiveness, you can read high value placed on service and excellence. So, wonderful. So Gina, thank you. Next slide. So this is overall satisfaction at Carmel Valley Manor. Jay had mentioned that we have promoters and detractors and passives. So you'll see here, these numbers are the promoters, the very satisfied, and then the satisfied is the passives, and the gap, the 3% gap is the detractor. So I just want to bring that to your attention. So 97%, 51% very satisfied, and 54% and 23. So we continue to look at those numbers and why. Overall satisfaction, 68%, and 24. Overall satisfaction in 23, 70%. Nina, thank you. Next slide. So again, this is a net promoter score, as Jay mentioned to you, and we'll keep bringing this up. The score it goes from a -100 to a +100. So we've got the promoters, the detractors, and the passives. So in 2023, our net promoter score was 65, and 24, 69. So that's an incredible score. So we're very grateful. Family satisfaction, again, we reach out to families as well, especially those in assisted living and skilled nursing. We have a high value on relationships and relationships with your family. That's very important to us. And so we do love hearing from family. And so you'll see these numbers as well from 23 and 24. Thank you, Gina. Again, family overall satisfaction with healthcare at Carmel Valley Manor. In 23, 65%, very satisfied. In 2024, 64%, very satisfied. So we're grateful. Family overall satisfaction, 23, 71%, 24, 58%. So we continue when we have some little one-offs, we dig a little deeper there. Family, again, as Jay said, how it's important to us to know how likely would you be to recommend Carmel Valley Manor. For family promoters, 76 in 23 and 68 in 24, the promoters. So total NPS score 66 and 59. Employee satisfaction. Dean and I are looking at, we also send quarterly queries to our staff. We're looking at changing that up a little bit, looking at the questions we ask, but this is the employee satisfaction from 23 to 24. Overall satisfaction, 23, 67% satisfied, 24, very satisfied, 61%. So NPS score, 23, 45, NPS score, 49. Again, we're above the mark for this as well, though we'd like to go higher. So again, employee engagement is really important to us at Carmel Valley Manor. And so we do a lot of things for our employees. We've had fall picnics. We've had opportunities to share games and things with the residents and stuff, engaging our employees. Jay's done a really good job educating on what the NPS score is and means, but this is another slide to reflect it. NPS measures the loyalty of customers to an organization, the likelihood that someone would recommend a company, product, or service to someone else. NPS, as Jay mentioned, ranges from -100 to 100, positive 100. So you can see the bar below, we're hitting in the great and well, we're in that great range. right now. So we're heading towards excellent. That's our goal. So the last of the NPS scores, resident 69, family 59, employee 49. Overall satisfaction, you could read this. Yeah, that's great. So last slide, Gina's letting me know. Thank you, Gina. Thank you all very much. It's a joy to be here. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think Chris was a cheerleader in high school. We were, right? I knew it. Okay, well, that was great. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. So the map, right? Map. So about 2 years ago now, we put together an ad hoc committee to address and develop a master facility plan. That group was comprised of residents, board members, senior management staff, architects, and our planner. I think we brought Joel on pretty early on in the process. So we spent about a year and a half. You have the map? Okay. We spent about a year and a half or so working through a very comprehensive planning process that got us to this point. Not this point that we're looking at, but the point that we're looking for. And just about a year ago, we presented this to the Manor Board, and this was a special meeting of the board, and they approved our going forward with the plan, and in doing so, authorized the group to focus on the independent living units first. So that's been our objective over the past year. Up until about a month or 2 months ago, when the residents came to me, or a group of residents came to me and said, and suggested that we accelerate the memory care center ahead of the independent living units. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But right now, the board mandate is to focus on independent living and to make that happen, and to simultaneously design the memory care center, but not necessarily build it, unless the group who came to talk to me about this can raise 50% of the projected construction cost. So we're going to put a big question mark there for now and come back and talk about that a little bit later this morning. So right now, I think it's working. I got it. Okay. So right now, this is Carmel Valley Road. This is the entranceway. As you come up to the intersection and make that left-hand turn, these 9 buildings represent new independent living 2-bedroom units. So we have 9 here. The smaller buildings behind are 8 new guest units. And then this is the leach field, and that will all become parking and primarily employee parking, for the the new layout on the campus. As you continue on Perimeter Road, we come up to the existing guest homes, and those homes represent the 9, or I should say 5, additional independent living units. So we have 5 here, 9 here for a total of 14. This area here, in this box here, these are the 5 homes that currently exist off of Los Arboles. We included these in the master plan, but we fully expect that it's going to take a lot longer to get all of the approvals that would be needed in order to do this part of the project. This would be icing on the cake, perhaps, but it's not something that we're going to pursue immediately. So we have 9, we have the new guest homes, we have 5 new 2-bedrooms. And as you continue on, we have here the new memory center. This is currently building 28, where we have two duplexes. And the meeting house, there's a little addition here which will allow us to make this a more ADA compliant building. And then we have the fitness center. In addition to the fitness center, we can either go up or we can go out, and those decisions, will be made sometime over the course of the next year. So this is what it looks like in sort of a grand view. And to bring you all up to date on the permitting process and the approval process, we've invited our lead planner on this project, Joel Panzer, to come up and speak to the group briefly this morning. Joel?
Thank you, Jay. Good morning, everybody. As Jay had mentioned, this has been a process that's been in discussion mode within the community for a period of time. And last summer, we got to the point where we had plans that were of sufficient detail and scope that we felt it was appropriate to meet with Monterey County. As you understand, in California, everything anybody wants to do requires some sort of local permit. And this would require a use permit from the county for new improvements, changes to the campus, and then other demolition and reconstruction. So we decided to pursue a path with the county where they have a process where you can bring in your plans and you meet with various agencies, which include fire, public works, planning, health department, et cetera. And it was a really good meeting. The outcome of that was they gave us a very specific list of items that they needed to see to process that type of application in a sufficient level of detail that when they took it in, we would pretty much have almost everything they wanted. And I'm pleased to report that so that was in last July, we formally filed, I want to say December 12th, and we got from the county what's called an incomplete letter, meaning it's a letter that says, here's the several things that you need to do to make the application complete so they can further process it. And I would say that the initial meeting really went very well in that the letter that we received from the county had very specific items. One of them, if you're doing construction in California, you have to do a construction management plan, a stormwater management plan. We knew that was going to be requested. They wanted to know a little bit more about tree removal on the campus. Monterey County protects native trees, and there's a lot of ornamental trees on the campus that would be affected by the project. Outside of the project, because in Carmel Valley, water, traffic are big items. They wanted us to study 3 intersections just to get a sense on what they call level of service, how many cars might be generated from the new construction and where are they going? Are they going towards Carmel Valley Road or towards Los Laureles grade? And then there's a couple other minor items, some building heights that exceed what the county needs to see. So in the complexity of projects I've worked on over the course of my professional career, I thought it was a really good letter. It was pretty narrowly tailored. We expect to be able to provide that information back to Monterey County. And by state law, once the county receives that information, there's a 30-day review process where they'll circulate that information to maybe Public Works or the Health Department, et cetera, for them to review it and see are there, based on the new information provided, are there any additional questions? I would reasonably expect that the next letter, we should be deemed complete, which means they now have enough information to take the application further in the review and approval process. In California, there's the California Environmental Quality Act, which looks at a wide variety of issues, air quality, plants, animals. Given the square footages we're talking about here, adding, there might be a CEQA level thing. We haven't determined that with the county yet, but we're really moving along quite well. The next step, once they make a CEQA determination, would be to set a public hearing date for the review. And in California, and as many of you know, the Follow the Pine Cone and Carmel Valley Association provides an opportunity for the local community to provide their comments or input, et cetera. One thing that you will see going up at some point in the not too distant future are story poles. When you drive up and down Carmel Valley Road, it's like the flagging and netting. You'll see some down at All Saints Day School as an example of what that might look like, so that the county can properly evaluate where new buildings are going to go. Can they be seen from a common public viewing area, meaning Carmel Valley Road? And it just allows them to further assess and analyze the project. So from my perspective, I've worked on a lot of complex projects over my period of time in Monterey County. I thought the letter was a good one. That being said, we still have more information that we have to package up and provide to Monterey County for further review. But I think in 2024, you'll see this project pick up steam as it relates to getting into the permitting process and getting that scheduled and moving the project forward. So I think that concludes my comments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joel. What Joel didn't say is that we've been working with the planner at the county, and she left the other day. So we'll have a new person, I suppose, at some point. Okay, so the next part of the master plan that we want to go into a little bit more depth on has to do with the memory care center. So the architects, Ray Yancey and Kelsey, have come down from Portland, and I'm going to ask Ray to come up, and is it going to be Ray or Kelsey or both of you? Ask Ray to come up and talk a little bit about the memory center, and then we'll open everything up for conversation and questions. And Ray, it's all yours.
Morning, everyone. How are you? It's great to be here. This is the third time I've been here, so I'm getting to know the campus and what Carmel Valley and the community here. So one thing I want to talk a little bit about, of course, is the memory care building. What I'm going to be showing today is really a high level concept. We really haven't delved in and gotten a lot of feedback yet, and we certainly want to do that before we get too far along. But these were some initial high level concepts that we started to develop to kind of show what we could fit in the location for this memory care on site, and some of the programming elements that we feel need to be there as a to really support the residents that would be using that part of the community. So we have gathered some high level information from Jay and Nina about the memory care. And so some of that's reflected here. As I said, we're going to go through and develop that. And so we're going to be soliciting more feedback to really fine tune the project overall. Next slide. So as Jay mentioned earlier, we're going to be locating it kind of near the entry by Hillcrest, kind of the south side of Hillcrest there where the duplex is currently. We feel that this is a nice location. Some of the design themes here is that it's the proximity to the healthcare center, of course. There's a strong service connection to Hillcrest. That's a lot of where the service aspects, where kitchen, those types of things can occur and connect and work efficiently there. There's a good pedestrian connection. We can have a drop off that works off the main drive, so cars can maneuver off of the main drive and allow for people to enter and exit the building. And then we also wanted to position it to allow residents to have views from the building, not just the nearby landscape, but the more distant views to the beautiful mountains that you have everywhere around the property. Solar orientation is important. Of course, we want a lot of daylight to be able to enter the building and the residents to be able to have those aspects. And then integration into the landscape. The landscape here is so important that we want to make sure that we kind of tie the new building into the existing landscape as much as possible. So those are all important aspects about how we site this building. Next slide. This is I don't have the so the building is again kind of talking through the design themes here. We're providing 12 private suites, so they would each have their own bathrooms and restrooms as part of each of the suites. We have a single neighborhood, and what we mean by that is essentially all of the residents gather into one area and would be able to interact with each other within that neighborhood. And so there's kind of a central common areas for that to occur. In the central, within that, we kind of have developed some distinct activity zones. You know, we have kind of a lounge area. This is a window you'll see, which has a fantastic view to the mountains, an activity area, a living room for family to gather, a dining room with the kitchen, and then what we call a theater room, or a place where they can watch movies and whatnot in that space. And then we also have kind of an active to a quiet progression. So these are more active areas, and then they kind of go back to a kind of a quieter area in the back. And then we have a compact service area that will support this building and the residents here along with the staff. And we're also providing a sheltered, secured outdoor patio so that it would have areas that would protect you from the sun and the wind and those kinds of things when you're out there, and have, you know, a secured fence area as well. Next slide. Sure. While we're waiting, there's kind of an entry here. Small office, conference room for residents, a staff area, a bather, charting meds, those types of things, and a small salon and kitchen. We have two parts of the kitchen, more of a service area in the back, and then more of a residential style kitchen out front, so residents can kind of interact and smell the foods and participate in the sense of visually seeing those types of things. So this is the view of that common area, the neighborhood that I was speaking about, and you can kind of see the window here that looks to the distant mountains. This is the kitchen, dining, this is the secured outdoor space here, and then this would be that theater here with activity farther in the distance there. So some of the things, of course, we want it to be a warm and welcoming place, connection to the outdoors, so you'd have these very large windows to maintain that connection to the outdoors, views to the landscape, bringing the daylighting. Here, we're even having some high windows, but we're also putting some screening there so that it can filter the sun, so you don't get that harsh sun coming into the spaces. Circadian rhythm lighting, which is something that we do in a lot of our senior living, memory care and assisted living, where it, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it essentially tracks the temperature of the lighting as well as the intensity throughout the day. So in the morning, it's really bright like it is on when the sun comes up, and then in the evening, it's like the sunset, so it diminishes, so that it helps your body to maintain that circadian rhythm, which is so important to your activities. And of course, we wanted a vaulted space and use of natural materials in that as well. Next slide. So this is one of the suites. We wanted to have it be a cozy scale, nothing that's too elaborate. Really, the intent is not for residents to hang out in this space. You really want them in the common areas to be interactive, but a place where they can customize, feel at home, have the things that are related to them as from their family. For instance, to show some family photos, those kinds of things could be brought in here, and furniture and those kinds of things, so that there's the simplicity, the flexibility to personalize. Daylighting, again, is very important. Of course, they will all have windows and views to the surrounding landscape. So those are all very important as well. And just some of the next steps, like I mentioned, we're just doing the conceptual design right now. These renderings and floor plans are very conceptual. And so our next phase will be the schematic design phase, where it's really an interactive process with the stakeholders in the project, and really gathering that information and fine tuning the initial ideas that we have to really fine tune it and connect with what Carmel Valley is looking for in their memory care center. And then as we finish that up, then we would go into the design development, and usually that includes defining systems like the structural, the mechanical, electrical systems, and those types of things. And then construction documents is when we start to detail and provide the specifications. And then we go into the bidding and permitting process, where we'll be pricing the project and getting the approvals with the county for building the project. And then, of course, construction, where we'll be implementing that. And that, could be, once that starts, it's 12 to 15 months probably is the timeline for that construction to occur. And so that's kind of the steps we will be embarking on as we move forward on the project. So thank you very much. Any questions? Yes.
To produce an echo chamber. We've had a lot of experience with echo chambers here in our bistro, which is it's a dining room area.
Sure.
And I believe that you need to consider sound damping or some kind of material to make that an area that's not resonant and allows some feeling of privacy.
Sure.
When people are discussing. Also, I think I noticed with the master plan and also there's a real paucity of parking around that building. As you know, on the other side, there's a little parking available for assisted living and a skilled nursing facility, very little for visitors. And also has to be shared with manor vehicles and contractors who come out with their vans and everything, which means that visitors who come in sometimes have to park a long ways away. And in the master plan, they're taking half of a parking lot to put in 5 new buildings up there on that area. So parking is a real issue, both for the master plan and for your design. I think you've got room on the side and behind where you could put some parking and somehow make that available so people wouldn't have to climb uphill, really badly. to get to visit their loved ones. But I think that both those, the sound and the parking would be issues that you need to address.
Sure. Yeah, I think those are both great points. On the acoustical, of course, you know, we want surfaces that are easily cleanable. So you typically have more of those types on the floor, but the acoustics for both the ceiling and other surfaces are something that are critical for us. And we usually include an acoustical engineer as part of our project to make sure that we're addressing those types of things. On parking, I think that's certainly something that we need to evaluate and make a decision about how we want to address that on site in that area particularly. So I agree with all those comments. Yeah, way back.
I have a question about, we've got a lot of glass proposed, which is amazing. In the bid, are you also going to be considering using bird safe glass, especially coming from Portland? You're really aware of how
Yes.
important that is.
Yeah, in the city of Portland, they've made it a requirement for the buildings downtown. I think that that's certainly something that we need to look at. Even in the evenings, you know, things can be attracted to that because you have the daylighting or you have the lights on inside, and you can attract things and having that. And for people who don't know, generally it's almost like a dotted kind of threading that happens on the outside of the window so that the glass doesn't look clear. It's a surface so that the birds and can detect that and change their path so they don't run into the glass. So yes.
Will your company be,
The question is will our company be sourcing the furniture, and historically we have. So in our office, we have both architecture and interiors, and we also do the FF&E for many of the senior living projects that we do. And so, you know, we're very knowledgeable and experienced in picking furniture that's senior.
I noticed there are no wheels on the chairs.
Yes.
I think it's important, whatever you do, that
Yeah.
we can have mobility for the furniture so people can pull up chairs to congregate to visit.
Agreed. We do provide the casters at the front of the chairs. I think in the rendering, we didn't provide them. They're not easily found in 3D models these days. And so that's something we need to work on, but agreed that we will be providing those.
Say that the kitchen in Hillcrest will be furnishing the meals at the center there. That kitchen is overstressed right now. It cannot be enlarged. It's really tough. They do a masterful job at serving trays all day long to skilled nursing and additionally serving dining room in the Hillcrest dining room area, which is very congested, by the
Sure.
way.
Yeah.
And how is that going to be able to service an additional facility?
I don't think that we've addressed that fully, if it would be coming from Hillcrest or if it would be coming from the IL kitchen. And so that's something that needs to be thought through and worked out. And a lot of that too, prep time can kind of shift sometimes so that those things can be prepped and be ready so that there's it doesn't put as much demand on the kitchen. It's more of a scheduling and so that's something we'd have to talk through with the kitchen staff and how they would manage that.
Yeah, it's a daunting challenge because I've seen that when things have to come from the main kitchen in the pavilion over to Hillcrest or others, it's a real difficult job to keep it warm, keep it presentable, make it feel like it just come fresh from the kitchen. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
And you've got a daunting challenge there.
And we do have kitchen space, and that's just a function of staffing and how you would want to finish those that food if it's just partially finished in those other kitchens and then finished there in the memory care so that it preserves that finished feel of the meals. So those are things that we have to talk through and solve. Well, we have, there's 16, we're showing 16 chairs currently. There's 12 residence rooms. And so there is room for more than that, because we also have some room at the bar, at the kitchen itself. And I think with the space that we've provided, there's more room for some 2-chair tables as well to be integrated, because sometimes not everybody wants to sit with a larger group. So there's flexibility there to provide that for both caregivers also, because caregivers often have to help as well, and so they have to have a place to sit as well. So those things are all being thought of.
Okay, thank you, Ray. Great job. So we're gonna open this up now to the entire community on any of the presentations this morning. And we have a couple of runners with mics. Marty?
Good morning, fellow residents. I've got some prepared remarks. They're not too long, but I think they're important. The residents of cottages 28A, the Wiscops, and 28B, the Clarks, as you know, our units are the ones where the memory care center will be placed. We don't dispute the need for an on-site memory care center or the board's preferred location for it. Obviously, it's a gorgeous location because we saw all these beautiful views, which is what we enjoy right now. The bad news is that the preferred location will require demolishing our cottages and displacing us from our homes. This requires a solution, and that's what I want to talk about. The good news is that Jay has been very gracious with his time, and he has told us that we will be treated fairly. We very much respect and appreciate that. Jay has assured us in writing that wherever we move within the manor, it will be, quote, equivalent or better to our current cottages. However, given how unsettled we feel about our near-term futures at the manor, we would like to present a possible solution. As documented in the most recent accents, and it's been alluded to here earlier, the manor's master facility plan initially called for building additional independent living units before constructing the new memory care center. And as we've heard subsequently, and that would have worked out fine. Subsequently, however, the executive committee of the manor's board approved the idea that if the manor raised at least 50% of the cost of the center from private sources, the manor could, quote, carve out the memory care center from the master facility plan. That plan would force us to vacate our cottages years earlier than originally expected. Just consider it. A carve out for the memory care center necessarily requires the manor to demolish our units before constructing the new IL units. Therefore, the carve out should necessarily include mitigating the direct adverse effects on us. The first option presented was for us to move into vacant equivalent cottages. This is preferable but problematic due to how few cottages like ours exist and how slowly they turn over. Another alternative is for us to first move into less desirable space while waiting for an equivalent or better cottage to become available or the new IL units to be constructed. As you can imagine, this double move is totally unacceptable. We would like to propose that the manor's carve out also include constructing 2 new independent living units that meet the equivalent or better criteria, not only in terms of living space, but also in terms of livability as defined by the Wiscops and Clarks. It's imperative that the construction of these units be completed before the manor begins demolition of 28A or 28B. This is the only fair and equitable solution to finding a place for us to live. Jay was kind enough to show us a design for the floor plan of the IL units, and he has informed us that it is only a concept designed for permitting purposes. Fine. We would like to become intimately involved in the design of the two carve-out IL units, especially in the actual floor plan. Much the same way as we were involved in selecting and renovating our current cottages that each of us waited for about 4 years to obtain. We would welcome making our new cottages available as model units for marketing purposes if the manor desires. We seek written assurances that new units designated specifically for us will be available before the demolition of our cottages. These assurances should be also included a minimum first. All the amenities present in our current cottages when we accepted them and at move-in. And I'll joke at that one, maybe not quite the views that we enjoy now, but we're willing to have to give up something. All the amenities we paid for out of pocket at that time and since. Jay has already told us that there will be no increases in buy-in or monthly fees, which we appreciate. In sum, we know what our needs are and expect the manor and its architectural team to work with us to meet these needs. As a start, we invite the architectural team to visit our cottages to better understand the floor plans and amenities that have served us and the manor well for many years. We do not want to become displaced persons in our own community. We moved once to come to the manor. Do not force us because of the earlier construction of the Memory Care Center to move more than once to stay here. We respectfully request that this proposal to build 2 new IL units for us becomes a matter of record of this meeting, and that we receive a written response to the terms we have just outlined. We would welcome any comments from residents, written or in verbal, as well as from administration. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Marty. Yeah. Mike's coming.
So, I'm Ann Clark. I'm speaking for Duncan as well. And, so we are concerned because we did not get notice of the plans when we first moved in. And there are very few cottages overall, and those very slow turnover. So we waited several years and then additional many months for the renovation before we could actually move in. So we're quite concerned about the scheduling and the sequencing of the proposed demolition relative to the proposed relocation of our space, whether it's to we don't want anyone who's now in a cottage to don't wish them ill will while we wait for them for a cottage. We also hope that at least 2 of the new independent living units. And in addition, where I am particularly concerned about the ability of the center to properly evacuate in an emergency. Not that we're at high risk, but I'm looking at how the employee parking would converge with everyone else trying to evacuate out onto Carmel Valley Road. So those are my 2 major concerns.
Thank you, Ann. Any other questions, comments? Sydney? Wait for the mic. Eight. Yeah, we could, can you go back? Can you see those?
Yeah.
These eight right here, and this is all parking. This is all new parking. Down on the leach field.
The ones on top will be eliminated, the ones on.
That's correct. The ones on top and the one, all of the current guest units would be eliminated.
I
And we
see. What about
replaced with
the,
these eight.
how will the noise from the road be, how will the protection for those guest units? Because the original
be
ones
part-
existing are terrible.
That'll be part of the construction, to soundproof as best we can. Yeah, we're quite aware of the roadway and the issues along Carmel Valley Road.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Alex?
Hi, I just like to say I support the Clarks and the Wiscoffs and what they're asking for, I think is fair. But also, I think they should be done in conjunction with a memory care center being built before a lot of other independent living is done. I believe both should be carved out, as you've termed it, because we are getting older, those of us who've lived here for a long time. Those of us who are moving in are moving in older and more infirmed. And I think I was in the health center twice after surgeries, and I really feel memory care should be separated from recovery.
Thank you, Alex. Sonia? Over. Violet?
There are a number of people who really enjoy walking what we call the ring road. And sometimes it's pretty hairy because there's so many vehicles, construction vehicles. And
With the mic.
sometimes it's a pretty hairy experience because of the traffic. Construction vehicles, just people, and now you're increasing that. Are there any plans in the master plan for a walking path for people?
Currently, no, but it has been discussed. The question was, has there been any consideration for a walking path along Perimeter Road to get residents off of the road, when they're walking around and running or doing whatever. We don't currently have it, but it has been discussed. And if it's possible, I think we can do it. Yeah.
Jay, has there been any discussion
Oh,
has there been any discussion of underground parking? For example, under the proposed memory center, it's on a fairly steep hill. Are the soils not compatible with that kind of structure?
we did look at some underground, parking, both at the memory center and also at the new IL apartments. But it doesn't look like it's doable. I saw John. Is John here? Here you are. John, you want to comment? You have a comment on that? Wait for the mic. The mic's coming.
We did take a look at underground parking. It is significantly expensive. You're paying so much more per parking space than you would for outdoor parking. So it doesn't appear to be feasible, but we can re-entertain it as we go through the design.
Thanks, John. Marilyn? She's on her way. She's coming.
Two things. What's the feasibility of a sound wall? And secondly, tied to that is moving here, I really expected, much like was mentioned, we'd have a decent pejorative, okay, a decent walking path that was for residents walking. I didn't expect to have to be kind of intertwining my walk with traffic. So two things, a sound wall possible and the walking, I support the walking path idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Ken?
The rhetorical question is, why develop this concept for a memory care facility at this location? The collateral costs are substantial. It eliminates 2 cottages. Their replacement cost maybe $3 million or near that. There is a lost opportunity with residents moving into those facilities or to equivalent facilities. There's the lost opportunity of entrance fees and increased monthly fees for those units. And that's been described as a temporary loss, and I'm not sure what a temporary loss is when we don't receive fees that we could receive or that we have to pay for the cost of the new facilities. I was also concerned about the financing for the manner to finance part of the construction. I assume that would be a drawdown of reserves, and that potentially would threaten the funding status for long-term service commitments. Operating costs will certainly increase with the new center. For residents moving in, if residents were to move into that facility, there's no additional revenue from those residents with type A contract. Most likely, those operating costs would be paid for with increases in monthly fees. 240 residents signed up for memory support as an integral part of skilled nursing. My understanding is that those services are very good. Certainly, any deficiencies could be addressed with training, with certification, with additional staff, with facilities mods, and perhaps technology. You know, for example, a robot, today's robot could keep track of everyone in the facility and warn of any issues if we would like to have a robot roaming around. The health center memory support function, I mean, it's 70% occupied. So there's, what is that, maybe 10 rooms that are available for residents should they need that level of care. I would like to see us build a high-end memory care facility, select a larger campus site that would accommodate all of the amenities, parking, a full kitchen, more rooms, and minimize campus impact of construction and operation of the facility. Dedicated departments and dedicated staff should be provided for a high quality memory care. Make it its own cost center. Isolate the cost from the residents, body of residents, and that it would have to provide its own cost, pay for its own cost with revenue. accommodate non-residents to be a profit. It could be a profit center as the Central Coast premier memory care facility. And then finally, the construction of the new 14, I think it's 14 independent living units and then maybe 10 to follow. The concern there is that it threatens the manor's occupancy and long-term financial health. So we have an annual passing or transition of residents, and we have an average turnover of existing units of about 11 per year. It's critical that we maintain occupancy of those units for the long-term financial health. Certainly with the decrease in residents and we still have cost increase with inflation, but we have a decrease in revenue. And that's why occupancy is really critical. 14 new units initially certainly add operating cost, and those costs would be covered as we move in new residents. But the choice between the old and the new residents, I'm concerned that that choice will decrease the acceptance of the existing units that have been refurbished. So will a potential new resident say, hey, I'm going to wait, I'm not coming in now, I'm going to wait for the completion of the. Now that might be temporary, but still it's a concern that if we drop below an occupancy level that's sustaining, that it could be problematic for the manor. And then one final thing, the board of directors decided in 2017 to build new apartments and a memory care facility. And things are quite different now. The posture, our financial posture at that time was different. Now it is very good.
Thank you, Ken. There's a lot to respond to there. And I think the most important thing I can say, well, two things. One is that we have a wait list of over 100 applicants, most of whom are waiting for 2-bedroom units that we don't have. So building 14, netting out the 2 that, for the building 28 occupants, still leaves us with over 100, people who are waiting to come onto this campus, presumably. So that's one thing. The second thing is that we have conducted a third-party independent feasibility study based on this plan, and it does pencil out. In fact, it makes, even netting out the building 28, occupants and relocating them to a new, to 2 new units if we have to. The project does pencil out, and it makes this campus, which is the smallest campus in California, smallest CCRC in California, makes us stronger financially. It takes our days cash on hand from the current, 500 or 600 days to almost 800 days. And it allows us to, to build our reserves. So and we took a very conservative approach on that feasibility study. For example, using 5% interest, using our current, debt structure. So we're fairly confident that financially we can make this work. Takes into consideration those additional operating expenses that come along with, with some expansion and with the memory care unit. And as for opening up the memory care unit to, to the outside, we don't think that that's going to be necessary. We're building this off of today's ratios of, residents to memory care need. These ratios are developed by, as standards, by the industry or within the industry. And we think that the 12 units, the 10 to 12 units, are going to be, sufficient for our residents, only. Whereas skilled nursing, you so, aptly described, running at about 70% occupancy, has capability to bring outside people in under Medicare for short-term rehab, which will add additional incremental revenue, onto our books. So I don't think the board would get behind this if it weren't financially feasible. I don't think that we could recommend to the board something that, that wasn't going to be financially feasible. And again, in that study, we did factor in the disruption to Building 28 and the impact that's going to have financially, at least in the near term. I know that didn't answer everything, but if there's anything important that I left out, I'm glad to try to answer that.
Jay, I would like to add that that one of the requirements, as I understand it from the state, is that on the additional incremental 12 additional independent living units, they need to be 80% pre-sold before you can start down that road of construction of those additional incremental 12 independent units. And I would point out two things. Number one, the entry fee and the acquisition prices of those 12 units will virtually, if not entirely, Annalise says it won't entirely do it, but it'll come very close. The entry fees will almost totally offset the construction fee for those new units. So the additional 12 units only throws about another $1.5 million into the operating income from the monthly fees. So it really does nothing but strengthen the financial vitality of the community.
Thanks, John. Anybody else before I go back to Ken Okay, Ken, you can go again. Well, John put in the twice rule, yeah, 2-time rule.
The entrance fees are restricted, and you don't have the full entrance fee until you turn over the keys. So it's going to take some imaginative legal work to figure out, and I haven't heard a solution to that. In other words, it's suggested, okay, you get $1 million in an entrance fee, and then you can pay for $1 million of constructing that cottage. I don't think it works that way legally.
No, it could. They're not restricted in the sense of a donate. Am I correct? They're not restricted.
Well, it's not income until it's amortized.
Well, you can come up. Bail me out of here.
So the amortization of the deferred revenue, the recognition of the deferred revenue is an accounting activity. Cash flow is cash flow. So if you have money coming in and it's wise to pay down principal with that money, and in fact, that is what the feasibility study it expects, and that would be how the financing would be written. Then of course you would use that cash to pay down. It doesn't affect the liability of the deferred revenue. The accounting is separate. The accounting activity is separate from the cash flow. It's the same as with capital expenditures. The cash flow goes out to pay for the capital expenditures, but then you depreciate the expense over many years. That's the same way that deferred revenue works with amortization.
Thanks, Annalise. Ann, wait for the mic, please.
So, question, are Ray and Kelsey of LRS,
Correct?
who are talked about the memory care design, are they also responsible for the design of the new independent living unit? Or is that a
Ray-
different group
They're going to be brought on for that project.
that they are?
Yes.
Because I gave copies of our current layout to them for consideration. And then, and then secondly, are all the various comments, like on the pathway, are they going to be part of the minute?
Everything's been recorded. So if the recording is working, it will be. Let's see, Sydney?
I'm sorry, this is a little bit of a selfish comment. I'm here at the waning part of my life, and the construction, this continuous construction, is detrimental in terms of how I feel about this place. And I am grateful for what you've done. I'm grateful for what you're doing because I think it's necessary for the solvency of this place. But can you make some enhancements first, such as this pathway idea is great? Can you do something about the parking first? The things that are just making us crazy.
Well, I think I'd like to think that the answer to that question is yes, but I'd have to yield to Joel to see what we might be able to do outside of the master plan, or to add items like a walking path to the master plan. Parking is addressed. There's parking there. They all have parking. They all have parking.
In that parking lot.
Not sure where.
Okay,
I would briefly respond to say that on the question about a pedestrian access trail or parking, they can operate independently of this overall master plan by going to Monterey County with, whatever is agreed upon between management and the community as to what you'd like to see. So it can operate separately. The whole purpose of a master plan is to disclose to the county the entirety of what's being contemplated, but that doesn't preclude small little improvements which occur over time and have occurred over time on the property.
Marty? Wait for the mic. It's right behind you.
Just as a follow-up, I mean, we made a proposal, and I know proposals can get forgotten very quickly. I'd like to know when will be an actual response as to whether a carve-out for 2 units is feasible. Obviously, if new units become available here, or, I mean, if we can move into existing cottages, that'll solve it. But that's a hope and a prayer, and I'm not convinced that it's going to happen. And so we made a proposal, and if the manor has a counter proposal to get us settled in somewhere, I'd like to hear it. But I don't want this to just be forgotten and to disappear into the ether.
But I think it would be fair to say that we couldn't make that kind of a commitment until we get through this entire planning process and get final approvals. If we were to go back to the county and start, pulling parts of the project out, of the current proposal, I think that would create havoc. I think, and Joel is nodding his head. So we have to get through this process. It's going to take a good 18 to 24 months. Is that realistic? And then if we have final approval within that 18 to 24 months, I think then we can, give some consideration, to this proposal, the carving out the memory center sooner rather than later. But I don't think we can say today that we'd want to break this thing up in such a way that it would create issues with the approval process. We kind of got it going well now. I want to keep that going and ultimately get the approvals. So we're realistically, we're talking about almost, 3 to 4 years, before anybody's going to move into anything. So it's quite a long process. Karen? Wait for the mic. Oh. Of the map? Yeah, we have the map. Yes, of course.
Yeah, Jay.
Tom? I'm sorry, the question was, can residents get copies of these maps? And the answer is yes, we have maps. Tom?
Yeah, I served on the master planning committee. It was hard to find a location for this particular facility on that campus. The campus, as you can see, is quite crowded. But sitting here, I want to state what's missing in this conversation is a critical need for memory care on this campus. Assisted living is full. They have memory care patients in assisted living. It is inappropriate to mix memory care patients with functioning assisted living patients. I didn't know when I came to this campus that this didn't exist. Maybe I didn't think about it, but I just want to say that it's critical. This is the best we could come up with. There's a lot of problems to solve and a long ways to go.
Marilyn. This is the longest coffee session we've had.
I am about to say something that's not going to get change anything because everything is in place. And that has to do with sort of what Sydney said and then what you just said, Jay, when you said none of this is going to happen. It's a 4-year project or something like that. And what many of us are hearing, 4 more years of construction noise. And
the construction would be,
well, I'm talking about the existing stuff, the renovation of apartments right now.
That's going to continue.
That's going to what?
That's going to continue.
Yes, that's my point. That's going to continue, and it has been ever since we moved in here. And much as I love this place, and it's the people that make this place wonderful. Those statistics about satisfaction and everything, I found hard to answer because of the discomfort that I've experienced in having 5 units renovated right across the street, across the hall, next door, another one there. And they're all the ones where they take down the ceiling. It's not just a pretty it up. I don't know what I'm asking for you to do about that, except to acknowledge that what the many, not all, but many residents are going through a lot of discomfort to make all this stuff happen. And I don't appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, we'll do whatever as we get to construction. I think it's incumbent upon us to do whatever we can to, to isolate the staging areas.
The workers are fantastic, but they have a job to do. Yes, they have been very helpful in trying to keep this noise down. Thank you.
Thanks, Marilyn. Is there anybody else let me go to Ken first.
This is a question from another resident who I don't believe is here today. He asked, who was the consultant for the memory care facility who has operating experience?
Who was the consultant?
Who consulted on the memory care design? A consultant with experience in operating a memory care.
LRS, our architects, have significant senior living and memory care design, and what they presented was simply conceptual. I'm not sure who you're referring, or who the resident is referring to.
The idea of having someone with operating experience who knows what the requirements are for a memory care facility.
I've run 3 memory care units in California.
How do they compare to what's being designed here?
Very similar. Little larger. My last community had 16 beds. Portola Valley also had 16. And Violet, you can't sit down. You can't fake it. Yeah, really.
Okay, so if the planning is at the 30% design stage, and it's presumably fairly early, for a 30% design is conceptual and early stage of consulting with the county. I'm wondering if an alternative could be at least put in the mix to convert the 3 units, new units, or 2 of them at least, into larger cottages. To at least get that up front as part of the proposal. Now that you're at this early, more flexible planning stage, instead of trying to go back and do an amendment later and go through all that process.
We'll discuss it. I don't know that it can be done.
Could we also put in, the impact of how many additional vehicles and people are going to be on that ring road, the evacuation and emergency, and have that be something that's considered now and not later?
Well, Joel can chime in, but we've had an extensive traffic study conducted as part of the application, and that will address all of those issues for sure. Yes.
So I think a key element for a number of us is living here is to be able to walk outside, or even to push our friend in a wheelchair outside. So are there accommodations for that in the plan?
Yes, there are.
Okay, and for safety for us on that ring road?
Are you
Safety.
talking about the memory center, Sonia?
Path. Mhm. In other words, not putting that into the future, but putting it into the present.
Well, currently the path is not in there. So, and we could probably do that outside of this master plan approval.
Well, I would vote for that.
But as far as the memory center does have a specific and safe outdoor area, for those residents. Yes.
So, thanks.
Anything else? Is there anybody on Zoom, Gina, that has questions? No. Otto? Let somebody in the back.
This is a very simple one, an easy one to answer. You were talking about the guest cottages. The existing ones where I am are up in the upper corner there. And I got confused about, after all this is done, how many guest cottages will there actually be?
8.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Violet, Otto?
I'd just like to rephrase my comments concerning the parking up there where those 5 units are proposed to be built and the guest units removed. The parking units that are up there right now, some of them are dedicated for the guest units, and those will be replicated down in the lower right corner, close to the new guest units. But there are a number of people that are located in the main facility that park there as well. And where will they park when those spots are not used? Those are all occupied right now and designated for people. We don't have every unit filled, so it's not a problem right now. But if we ever get to in the 90% occupancy, parking is going to be a problem for some of the people in the community. But again, I want to focus on the healthcare unit and the independent, skilled nursing unit and the proposed facility for memory care. That area is definitely going to need more parking. And
So,
go
so
ahead.
right now, where the parking is for, that's building 5 and 7, I think. Those parking spots over there in the carport. We have employees who park in some of those spots, and we have contractors in some of those spots. That's all gonna be moved down to here.
And that's not going to go away. That's going to increase with all the construction. And currently, they take a good percentage of the spots over there next to assisted living and the health center. They take a good number of those during the day.
I'd like to say I'm certain that the traffic study is addressing all of the parking. And if there's anything that comes up, we'll be made well aware of it. I don't think at this point anything has come up. So we're showing sufficient parking, for everything. And if we stage construction down in the new parking, that's gonna free up even more spaces up in the area that you're referring to.
Okay, I hope so. And I'd just like to say something about the satisfaction rates. We've seen that the outstanding satisfaction ratios are going down. We see that the satisfied ratios are either increasing, and so it keeps the balance kind of looking good. And I think it represents what I tell people when they ask me about Carmel Valley Manor. I tell them, it's not perfect, but it sure is way ahead of anybody else in this Central Coast area. And I believe that's true. We have issues here. We have questions. You are dealing with a lot of complex issues and problems. I think you made a lot of progress here with management and of course, you've got a very active community here who questions things and wants to know why and has issues. They have issues in their little neighborhood with noise, with parking and this
Sure.
and that.
Sure.
So you're going to continue to get this, but keep plugging ahead and keep being open. Thank you.
Thank you, Otto. Thank you. Well, on that note, Patricia. Wait for the mic, please. Yeah, if we can all shout, but it doesn't work.
Hi, Patricia Little, a relatively new resident. Over and over again, I hear parking, noise, construction. And it seems to me that although we understand from John that underground parking would be very expensive, we did that on our house in Marin, and it made all the difference in the world. This is an opportunity to keep so many more vehicles off the road. I'd like to see how much it would cost for underground parking for the memory care center and how it would affect our budget.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments, questions, complaints? If not, I declare coffee hour. Sydney.
I think this can be deferred to the next meeting, but I'd like to hear more about our effort to protect our nonprofit status. Losing that would be so expensive in terms of additional costs such as real estate tax. So I know it's been advised to us that there is an issue, and I feel like it's important to have a sustained pathway to resolve it.
Well, the best way we could have protected that or tax exempt status would have been to develop a PACE program, either on our own or with another partner. We're not giving up on that yet. I have a meeting coming up with Kate Daniels, and I'm gonna bring that as an issue because the supervisors do have some sway over the Central California Alliance for Health, and we're going to have that discussion. The threat, as I understand it now, not only to our tax exempt status, but to all healthcare organizations, is that the Congress has passed in the House a bill that would eliminate tax exempt status for those organizations that are deemed terrorist organizations or with ties to terrorist organizations. Wait, you laughed. The issue there, and the reason why Leading Age National and Leading Age California is fighting against this bill, is because in that bill it gives the executive branch the ability to identify any tax exempt property, a hospital, a CCRC, a Meals on Wheels program, as a terrorist organization. And if they're labeled with that, they only have 90 days to respond and have the ability to remove that label. So we're watching that bill very closely. We're watching what the final language would look like, and hopefully it never goes anywhere. But Leading Age is very concerned about the way it's currently structured and the impact they can have not only on our organization but all tax exempt organizations across the country. So. Okay, I would have rather ended on Otto's kind words, but if not, I'd like to thank you all for coming out this morning. Thanks to our speakers for coming and sharing some of your knowledge. And for those of you who are new, we hold these meetings once a quarter. So the next one coming up will be right after the May board meeting. So sometime in May. Thank you, everyone.